Yeah, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Kalinga Literary Festival. It is my great pleasure and honor to be in conversation with Sandeep Dutt today. He is a gentleman who is a man of extraordinary accomplishments. It's been very difficult to put it down in a few words, but he has very kindly assisted me with his description. So to read out what he has said, he starts off by identifying himself as an author, entrepreneur, mountaineer, and above all, passionate about taking learning forward. He is the founder of Learning Forward India, Ambassador 100 organization, and he is the chairman of the Bhadra Arjun Artisans Trust. He's also got many other accomplishments, which I shall not read, but one of the most important and significant ones, which is pertinent to our this evening's conversation, is that he is associated with the Fabindia School in Rajasthan. And I will not describe it more because I hope to discuss it more in greater detail with him later in the conversation. It is one of the most fascinating experiments in education, and I'm so delighted to be in conversation with Sandeep Dutt. Welcome, sir. Welcome to this thing. Maybe I should give a brief introduction about myself as well.
Yes, Jaya.
If you don't mind. I have been associated with publishing since the early 1990s. Again, held many diverse responsibilities, worked in publishing right from the literary magazine to indie presses to multinationals. And now I work independently as a consultant, etc. As I think the one thing in common between Sandeep and me is that we are both passionate about our chosen fields. We are extremely passionate, and I look forward to this conversation. Welcome, welcome, Sandeep.
Welcome, Jaya.
Well, one day we are going to meet in person, but Sandeep, first of all, I have to offer my congratulations on this absolutely brilliant book. I mean, every time I read it, I discover so much more. You set my mind thinking. It is more than the generosity of spirit with which you share your words. To me it comes across as a sort of a manifesto of your work, of your lifelong passion. So we'll get into the details a little later, but let's just start with the basics. How did you get into the field of education? It's been a few decades, and you started at a time when, it was still sort of exploratory. Tell me more.
Yeah, this is interesting. And I often people say I pass out of school. I say, well, I never passed out of school. So the fundamental flaw in thinking about passing out, how can you pass out of a school?
Yeah.
So it's like one of my ex-headmasters I was in conversation with recently. He said, what we learned in school together between him as my teacher and myself is that learning has to go on. The school of life has to go on. So when we say we graduate, it kind of doesn't really explain. It's a very figurative assessment cornerstone. And assessment cornerstone just to create some kind of suffix to your name. Yes, so and so and so and so. But that suffix is irrelevant. So when I go back to my life and I go back to the 70s when I was doing my schooling, I somehow fell in love being in school, which many of us may have fallen in love with. And then even after the school, I was right through my life involved with some school or the other in some capacity. And what took me to schools was the outward bound. I thought that teachers box children into a closed classroom and life is an open classroom. And I was very passionate of outdoors.
Yeah.
As I was very passionate of outdoors, I think I must take more children outdoors.
Yeah.
So that's where it all started.
No, but but if you were passionate about school and if you were interested, but in school we are all still very confined. We are still, have limitations. Was there something within the school which engaged you, which encouraged you to think out of the box in this manner and appreciate this kind of, what is it, experiential learning?
Yeah, experiential learning, or learning beyond the classroom, if I may want to put it in a simpler way. I give all gratitude to the teachers we had, and particularly I was lucky enough to go into the school which has its own curriculum. So I'm referring to Doon School, where I had the fortune to go. So what used to happen in school, they used to send out boys in groups to outward bound activities, which used to be twice a year. So these outward bound activities or midterms were the ones where you learned what is combustion, when you actually lit a fire yourself.
Yeah.
Where you actually saw the flora and fauna and try and connect it to what you were mentioned or taught in the class.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the beautiful part was, as you grew up in that experiential learning system, at the age of about 14, 15, they would say, go on your own. So first you would go in a larger group, then you would go in a smaller group, and then they would say, go without an escort.
Okay. That is really...
That is very interesting. And when I look at that, and when I really see that in today's day, where we have reached a stage where we are only looking at assessment, we are not looking at learning. Now, when we do our schooling, or the school, or the metaphorical good school I talk about, is where assessments have no place, but learning has all the place.
Yeah.
Now, if you go the world over, and if you even look at our historical perspective in India, you learned on the footsteps of the Guru. Yeah. Now, sometimes when I talk like this, people will talk, you're talking about Gurukul, you're talking about ancient Indian philosophy, it's not relevant. Hello, I'm not saying it's relevant or it's not relevant, but it is learning at optimal, where you learn how to cook, you learn about livelihood, serving your guru, you just about learned everything. So if you look at the Indian philosophy, the guru chela, or the ustad and the chela way of learning was really experiential learning. And today you talk of the Finnish model, where you say, okay, they learn everything outside the classroom.
Yeah.
You talk of project-based learning, you talk of experiential learning in Singapore. But you've forgotten that if you read from mythology to our ancient times, we learnt it all living with the Guru.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even today, now that we have grown up, we often go and live in an ashram, or we go for meditation camps, or we go for, better health camps or whatever. We go for a deeper sense of learning.
Yeah.
So that is the ecosystem. Now, if you look at a present day school, it does not provide you the ecosystem. Now, what is an ecosystem for a school? It's very simply, a school should provide every person an opportunity to learn at his or her pace, with his or her resources, with whom he or she would like to learn. Then only they will be learning. Now, with such parameters, you can't run a school system. That's the challenge.
It's very interesting that you say this, because one of the questions that I was wondering, which I'd framed to ask you, and I'll ask it now because it's a good opportunity, is how do you define a school? And then I will come to how do you define the good school, because you're very clear in your title. Even though it's a smaller print, you say my and then good school. So the good school is emblazoned on the cover, but my is very much there. So
Absolutely.
let's start with, if you've got to dissect this, what you define as a school. Does a school need to be a brick and mortar thing? Because what I'm hearing from you is it's basically that relationship and that community and the learnings you glean. But tell me more. I would love to hear, because you have a lot to say in this book. So tell me more.
Yeah. See, if you look at it very simply put, a school is a relationship of stakeholders. It's nothing more than that.
Yeah.
And who are the stakeholders? The teachers and the students. The teachers and the parents, the teachers and the management, the teachers and the teachers. How many times have I said teachers?
Yeah, you say it all the time. And
Absolutely.
May I interrupt here? No, may I interrupt here? What you also say is you qualify the teacher is not necessarily the teacher you see in the classroom. Throughout your book, you keep mentioning different scenarios. That's what I like about it. So tell me more. Sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah,
I'm so interested.
That's exactly what exactly what I was coming to. So there's a teacher in your peer, there's a teacher in your mother, in your father, in your brother. You learn from everyone. So when you look at the teacher, we talk of a teacher, we don't understand the depth of teaching. That's the first anomaly in the whole system. You learn to drive with someone, you learn to eat from someone, you learn your basic life skills from someone. That's what holds you ahead in life. And when I go to a school, I tell the school something very clearly. The learning for a child in a day school starts the minute the child sees the bus coming onto the stop.
Yeah.
So the child is there in the personal space called home. From the home, the child comes out, let's wait for the school bus. So the first teacher for the child is the person who puts the child onto the bus or receives the child on the bus. That's the first teacher. That's your first point of influence. Your second point of influence is when you travel in the bus is the kids around you.
Yeah.
Your third point of influence is your driver bhaiya and your didi who are there traveling in that journey with you. And by the time you come to the school, you've got the mood and the energy to make your day.
Yeah.
So the journey to school is also a very essential part of the learning element. So whether some young girl, you hear of stories, people boat to school, people walk to school, people cycle to school, all that adds to their learning system.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where the learning starts. Learning starts with the journey to school. Learning starts with the opening of the gates of the school. Now, learning in the school is offered essentially not just in the classroom, but it's offered to you when you play sport, when you have skills, you dance, you have art, you have craft, when you learn to live with each other, when you learn to accept each other, when you make space, when you learn to give. So my favorite analogy is when you come from home, you give up your personal space and you go into a social space. Now that is the journey of schooling. So from your personal space where you are with your parents, you are actually sent to a society and a community. Now in your community, the first lesson you get is to give, which is akin to service. So if you know that when you go to your kindergarten, what are you told? Share your food, share your tiffin, share your bag, share your pencil. That is nothing but giving.
Yeah.
And the sense of giving brings in you an element of service. That's the first element a school must have. A school must be grounded to a sense of service. Second, when you have the service element there, the next thing you learn in school is skills. You will learn how to sing, you learn how to draw, you learn how to dance, you learn how to play, all kinds of things you learn. So you pick up skills. When you are picking up skills, you are actually making your way with better motor skills, with better physical ability. You play sport and you also study. And that's exactly where I often say that a good school is that which offers service, skill, sport, and study. And if you look at the current system, schools only offer study. So if you have a school and it divides in these 4 S's, that's a great school.
And that is your fundamental philosophy, isn't it? That is what you expound upon in this book. I mean, the various examples that you take, that is what is interesting in it, that you have identified or rather delineated these 4 critical aspects of a school. But more than that, in your book, what you do is you have these short, pithy little chapters which take into account schools as they exist today. And you have created chapters based upon elements that are easily identifiable in each school. So it could be from the library, from the teachers, from whatever, they're very fixed notions of the elements of a school, and you leave the discussion. You lead a discussion in those specific aspects, and that's what I like, that you don't restrict yourself according to boards or according to curriculums. You are very keen on, because pedagogies, that's a part. The classic focus, your focus is on schooling, and what can you impart in the schooling? Is there more than just the schooling? Is it because it is a critical phase of life. It is a critical phase. You see the children transit from toddlers to being adults. They're ready to, they're eligible to be voting in our democracy by the time they leave school. So forming and creating, one of the things which I say when I go to school, especially when I talk to my daughter's school and teachers, is, hang on, we are all partners in this. We are all stakeholders in this. Because the schooling never finishes, the education never finishes, the learning never finishes. And this is what I liked about the way you talk. And I think this is where I'd like you to talk a little bit about the Fabindia School. It is absolutely extraordinary what you have done there. You have the clips I have seen, or whatever little I've read, I get a sense of that your philosophy is actually bearing fruition. Tell me more. Tell us more. I think we need to share it more widely.
Absolutely. School is a piece of land brought to life. School is not a compound. Now, if I look at where the schools are designed, they're designed like a compound. A school has to be without walls.
Yeah.
So when I look, I got this opportunity 10 years back to step in and lead the school culture transformation for the Fabindia School. And that's my position as the leader as the trustee or the managing trustee of the Bhattacharji Artisans Trust. The Bhattacharji Artisans Trust was created in 1988 with the object of helping artisans in their crafts in a particular area, where young Mr. William Bissell, the current chairman of Fabindia, came from his Westland days as a Woodstock young lad and went and settled in a village. I will work with the artisans here, and we will create a design and learning for them so that the quality of mojeries they make will become better. Now, the mojeries and the design never came, but he got involved and rooted with the culture. And when he got rooted with the culture, he asked them, what could we do together? So in 1990 odd, the artisans said, please make a school for our girls. Now that in Rajasthan was something unheard of. And add to that, they said they should speak English. So in this little village called Bali in Rajasthan in 1992, where the seed was sown of an English medium school, today there are 17 English medium schools in that village, all offering you all kinds of learnings and design. But this piece of land, which today is now almost 16 acres, it's a normal day school. We don't have a boundary wall. We have a 10-acre of forest. So it was an arid piece of land which you couldn't dig with a sickle. Today has a forest. Because of the forest, we are able to harvest rainwater, because the water collects in the forest, it recharges our wells. So we harvest water. The forest gives us clean air, we harvest air. And then we harvest sunlight for our power source. So we've had your solar energy there for 20 years already.
Impressive.
So in this kind of school, when children grow up, they are very much close to nature. And as they are close to nature, they watch the birds, flowers, bees, trees. We have a small organic farm which the children have made. They play on the campus. And the good part is, today, we have a Wi-Fi campus which is open to any and everyone to use. And how the Wi-Fi came to the school is also very interesting.
Tell me.
The nearest railway station is 13 kilometers. So we got a rail wire with a small antenna, and that's how we got Wi-Fi in school. Because the other 4G providers or 3G providers or the GSM providers couldn't give us the internet. So that's how the world opened. And why the world opened here is there was nature on one hand, and there was this offering of the modern world called technology on the other hand. So a lab today was ready, where you had the nature offering the children the elements of nature, and where you had modern technology offering them access to information. Now the challenge here is very simple. How do you convert information to learning? And that's where education has not really succeeded. So the challenge of the industrial-based education system or schooling is we are looking at education as equal to information. Unfortunately, education is not equal to information. Education is equal to relationships. As your relationships strengthen, you learn how to grow up in a society which you are supposed to enrich with an experience. Now, schooling is essentially an experience where the stakeholders, which is teachers, parents, students, and management, work with one aim in mind, that learning must transcend beyond the walls of the school. So what you get in school must carry with you or go along with you all your life. That's the key to better schooling. So that's why when we do our learning program with teachers and we talk about schooling, we don't look at a syllabus. Now, unfortunately, in today's date, CBSC, ISC, IB, the syllabus are being referred to as curriculum. That's where we have gone wrong. Curriculum is the way the school delivers the learning or offers the system of learning. And every school is unique. That's why you said the my here. That my here identifies that everyone's schooling experience is unique. Everyone's abilities are unique. Everyone's learning abilities are different. Now, how do you offer so much of learning and flexibility? You can only offer it when you go the way I am offering you. Offer an environment where someone with service can flower, someone with sport can flower, someone with skill can flower, and someone with study can flower. And that's what the stakeholders have to work to give children an opportunity to flower in every element of learning.
You know, it's very interesting that you say that, because some years ago, I remember reading the British author, children's author Michael Morpurgo, talk about his struggles in the schooling system. And this was in the 40s. He says that, and he's repeated this experience in many interviews. He says that when it came to doing the academic curriculum, doing the paper tests, as he called them, he would falter. He would just barely pass or whatever it was. But the other stuff he could sort of handle and understand, and he enjoyed it, and he wished he had more opportunities, because the schools needed to recognize that they were a community. And as you're rightly pointing out, children have varying abilities, and these gradation systems, etc., where you expect everyone to ace and get all the seven points or whatever. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work, because everyone has, at the end of the day, we are all human in any case. Nobody excels like this in adulthood. So why do we put this kind of pressure on children? The reason, and what I liked about all that you have said in your book is you give people reading the book alternative frameworks. You're not insisting that they need to follow a particular route. You give your reasons for why you're offering alternatives, and that is what is interesting, because that's why I wanted you to talk a little about Fabindia School, was because it may be in Rajasthan, etc., but how do you sort of replicate that philosophy of the good school and your curriculum across other schools? Because you often you work with schools in cities as well. So how does it work? How do you apply that philosophy?
I knew you would catch me on that. Sometimes it's easy to make models, but it's very difficult to replicate them. So there was this debate there was a debate in the boardroom of the Fabindia School. Let's create more Fabindia schools. I said, hang on, these are not stores that you can open all over the country. A school is not a factory, number one. And a school is only governed by one limitation: happy teachers. So I said, if you can't, sorry, I'm going to say produce word. I said, if you can't produce or reproduce happy teachers, you cannot replicate schools.
I think that's a fair argument.
Then they said, okay, hang on, then what do we do? Now that we have this school for 25 years, it's matured, it's today standing out with so much. So I said, let's look at it very hypothetically. The school gives us 3 clear deliverables: governance, training, and learning. Governance in terms of management, in terms of how we run it as an institution, because governance builds the institution.
Yeah.
So today in our environment where schools are so-called non-profit, governance is a very iffy topic to talk of. And managements and governance always have a challenge in school. It's not them to blame, it's the system which is designed like that, where you can't operate truly as a non-profit, neither are you allowed to make profit for good. Ideally, school is for social wealth creation, and that is philanthropy. So what really happens is today philanthropy is considered giving. Philanthropy is not giving, it's social wealth creation. Now, when you look at social wealth creation, there should be no reason of profit or not profit or whatever. This is not required at all. After all, the profit of a school is how well the children do. And how well the children do is governed not by pedagogy, it's governed by pastoral care. So in the Fabindia School, what we thought that if we gave great pastoral care, we gave great mentorship, we needed the best teachers. So that's why we set up a learning center for teachers. So first was the governance bit of it, where we said, okay, we are trustees, all 7 of us, we are willing to leave the trust and get the best people in the country. That's how we handled our governance. So the governance of a trust must be open to the best people to come in, not kins and relationships. So that was the governance challenge we handled, where we felt the community should take over the school and run it. So when we work with schools today, we said we can give our governance design model to schools to adopt. So that is one thing we are giving to schools. And when we work with schools, we work with culture in mind. We are talking of school culture transformation. So culture has to begin with governance.
Yeah,
so one is governance. Yeah. Second is training. Training moves for teachers. And the goal of training is happy teachers. So like in school, children go with different abilities. Today, teachers and individuals also come with different abilities. So you work with teachers, it takes 3 to 5 years, and actually find the strength of each teacher for the school. So that's the next part. That's where the happiness of teachers come. And what happens today in the Indian schooling system is you don't want to invest in making your teachers happy. You only want your teachers to make work day and night is to make you happy so that your ROI goes up. On the other hand, if you work for the happiness of the teacher, which is not necessarily monetary always, I'm going to argue and prove to you it's not always money which will give you happy teachers. There is this clear path of the career. There is this clear empathy what the school must have with the teacher. There is the trust in the teacher. There's the leadership the teacher must be given. The freedom the teacher must be given. So that's part of our training. And definitely the third part is learning. Learning addresses better learning outcomes for children. So when teachers improve, it must translate into better learning outcomes. And better learning outcomes cannot be measured with assessments. So when we do our My Good School, we have a report card. And what is a report card? Where children will exhibit, this is my drawing, they'll paint something and this is what I learned. They will write about what I learned in music. The children write their own report card. So it's that much of a reflection. And once the children write the report card, then the teacher writes in the report card, then the parent writes in the report card. So that's a My Good School report card. And the report card also has a little recollection of a logbook where children follow their experience in a school in service, skill, sport, and study. So now you look at this, you have the governance, you have the training, and you have the learning. If you look at these 3 different parables, we take them to other schools. So today we have offered our modules through a foundation called the Learning Forward India Foundation. And the Learning Forward India Foundation is purely focusing on school culture transformation, which is a byproduct of our work which we have done for the Bhadrajun Artisans Trust. So that's why this book also came about. The book came about simply for 3 reasons. One, if you look at the chapters, They are very simple.
Yeah,
The
they are.
child can read, the teacher can read, the parents can read, anyone can read. And believe me, we will give you in Hindi and other languages very soon. We're already looking at the possibility. So this book will become like a basic handout for anyone and everyone who wants to do anything with schooling. The chapters are easy to read. The design of the book is also very simple to handle. And if you look at the theme in the book, from quality of education to the process to the learning outcomes, it addresses all these things. So that's all we have. And that's why the book, as well as our work at the Fabindia School, is path-breaking.
No, it's interesting that you are.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's interesting that you have managed to replicate the model by recognizing these three very critical components, governance, training, and learning. Because I was actually going to come also to the next part of when you have this very, on the face of it, a very simple philosophy, but obviously in the implementation, etc., it requires dedication and a passion, which of course you have, but it has to exude, and it has to infect, and it has to influence, and it has to impact many more people for it to be carried forth. Now that is interesting because one of the classic hurdles which I'm sure you encounter over and over again is, but a school, the fundamental notion of a school is this: it's a building, it offers these kind of academic things, and when the child reaches, say, age 10 or something, none of this is important. All the the sports and the other stuff is not important. And like you, I think that all these aspects are very, very important in the development of a student. I won't say a child, because you remain a student all your life, actually. What interests me is, how do you convince the schools, or how do you persuade the teachers that you work with, that learning outcomes of a child or the student assessment can be measured in various other ways? And what are those kind of measurements that you seek?
Fantastic. I was waiting for this. See, actually, the interesting thing what happens in schools is, every year they have a tick box. How many workshops did we do?
Yeah.
CBSE will tell you, you should have done 40 workshops. Please tick the box. Now, what happens in a workshop? Someone comes, someone talks, someone does some games and plays and goes back. And as long as the person is there, you are getting a bit of innovation, excitement. Once the person is gone, with the wind, everything is gone. So what we realize, if teachers have not experienced the joy of learning, how do you expect the joy of learning to reach children?
Exactly.
So that's exactly where the Learning Forward Foundation came in. So 5 years back, when I traveled to US, there is an organization called Learning Forward there. Learning Forward is the largest association of professional learners, not educators, professional learners, which is actually teachers. And they meet every year for 5 days in a place in US, and it's open to anyone in the world to go there. So whatever is happening in teaching, learning, school administration, they discuss and they take your ideas from you and they give you ideas. Similarly, in Helsinki, we have something known as the Education Week. So in Helsinki, you have an Education Week. So in the last 5 years, we scoured the world from Singapore to Australia to US to figure out what is the strength of our system and how can we take the joy of learning of the teacher ahead. So we came up with 3 deliverables. One, we designed a program called Joy of Learning. The Joy of Learning is an 11-session program. We don't need a workshop for this. You don't even need an outsider to come and do the program. Teachers are made learning community groups. They do reading, writing, and research together. So the challenge today of the education system is, we don't do reading, writing, and research, but we process a particular exam through assessment by only remembering certain things. So there is no reading, writing, and research as such. And today, what has happened in the last 2 years, and look at the new education policy, It's talking of a different language altogether. It's talking of experiential learning. And that's where My Good School comes in, where we talk of experiential learning. And that's exactly what the whole philosophy of My Good School is. So I come back to Learning Forward, where we said teachers must prepare a child for the future. And a future of education lies when a child understands what's appreciation, what's trust, what's honesty. There are 22 values. So teachers spend a whole year exploring the values in and around the school, in their environment. And then they highlight those values where they discover to their children. And then the children, when they discover the values, they write about them. So this is called the Joy of Learning program, which is a mix of pastoral care, it's a mix of mentoring, and it's a very simple design. So if you look at the Indian education system today, what's happened in New Delhi, they are talking of a happy curriculum. Yeah. Well, we've been doing that for the last 10 years. We have happy teachers already. So whatever we have been doing is kind of reflecting into the new education policy. And we have a living example of that, where we said the prime thing and the prima donna for schooling is happy teachers. Happy teachers will build My Good School. And My Good School will definitely require strong governance. So that's the whole design. So when you consider with pastoral care and mentoring to lead the school, when you consider teachers doing programs like the Joy of Learning, you will definitely see they get empowered. Our last year was the best year in our history, where teachers had the time. And last year, in the first 90 days of lockdown, we had 300 teachers working together with us. 300 of them. So there were only 4 of us. We handled a group of 300 teachers. Wow. And the beautiful part was we offered them the social emotional support. So the Joy of Learning program offered them the social emotional support. And that's what a school is supposed to provide a child. Now we are talking a child should get SEL today. But if a teacher doesn't know what SEL means, how is the teacher going to provide the SEL for the child? So in Joy of Learning, we look at the teacher as a student and help them understand what is social emotional learning. So this is what the Learning Foundation is doing. It's spreading the joy of learning, as simple as that.
But this also, from the models that you have discussed, and of course you elaborate upon in your book, is it puts the onus a great deal on recognizing what is the teacher-student ratio as well. Because if you have most of the classes in India continue to be very vast, and it's not very easy for a teacher to manage it at this level, at the micro level. So how do you propose, and how do you, because obviously you can't, how do you encourage schools to work within the systems that they have and impart and maybe get the kind of results that you hope to seek or desire?
Fantastic. See what happens, the definition of a teacher is wrong. We started this discussion about learning from everyone. So why can't some parents come to the school? Why can't some friends of the school come and work in the school? And if I go back to my schooling days, I know so many friends and so many relations of my teachers used to come and live in school, and we used to learn from them also.
Yeah.
If you involve the stakeholders, which is the parents, the management, the students themselves offer you so much of learning and leading. So if you look at if you look at the education policy today, I think we need to mention it because this is why the whole debate lies, and this book kind of was very timely. So the focus in that policy is also on teachers.
Sorry to interrupt. You have actually preempted me because that was going to be my next question, but carry on. I will not raise the question.
Okay. Yeah. We have limited time because I can talk the whole night on this subject.
I told you we were going to be doing this.
I'm conscious about the time. So what I'm saying is that the teacher is the key in the whole system. So how we handle this is very simple. We gave a part of the responsibility of the learning to the students themselves. And teacher became a facilitator. So you can even have your children come and take the class literally. And in this information age, a lot of children are coming informed to school, remember that. So exactly. The definition of a teacher has to be wide and encompassing. So if you feel a physics teacher can be a sports teacher can do art, music, dance, you have to look at your teachers also with different abilities and with the different shades of learning. So that's one way of looking at it. And if I look at the Fabindia School, I even had a driver who would be happy to help children do their homework.
Yeah.
So we have to look at what we have, and that's what we need to strengthen. So, this definition of a teacher, the day we can sort this out, we've actually sorted out this challenge of ratio between teacher and student. Now, good schools today say they have a ratio of 1:10. They count teachers and they count the other staff which supports them, whether it's in pastoral care or whether it's an activity beyond the classroom. So I agree with you, sometimes there's a limitation of 20, 40, 50 in a class, and with a 40-minute class, learning is at a premium.
Yeah.
But we don't need to have a class and syllabus like that. We're already talking of changing the content of what you do in the class. So this will be addressed, particularly with 3 clear deliverables today. 1, knowledge is available to everyone. So there will not be that pressure that you can't find a pipe of knowledge. So that's one thing that will be handled. Second, teachers today are keen to upgrade and learn. And they have access to upgrade and learn also. So that is the second advantage. And third, the world today has opened up. We are looking at every country and every system for more knowledge and learning. So all this is adding up to where we will improve in the education system.
No, I like that because again, it's something which resonates throughout your book. Also, I like the way you keep coming back to the fact that there has to be a balance which has to be struck between bookish knowledge and experiential learning.
Totally.
You always stress that, and you stress it in many ways. I mean, and you also, a couple of your chapters which particularly interested me because I love words and books, etc., were the chapters on encouraging reading and encouraging writing, because writing in itself, the very task of writing fundamentally aligns itself with the mentoring aspect, etc. But more importantly, it helps the student channel their own experiences and learn to express themselves. And I like the way that you took different aspects of a school and you mentioned it, and you constantly talk about how care should be taken in tackling different aspects of the school in order to impact meaningfully the life of the student. And the way you say it over and over again is very gently and correctly, but also with immense amounts of experience. Because what I think readers and all those who are watching this conversation today, I think should really enjoy reading this book, is extrapolate for themselves how they can make it work for themselves. That's the other very nice thing which comes through in your book. You have this immense experience, but you don't lecture anyone. Your passion and your evangelical fervor comes through, but it is not talking down to people. I like the way you have explained to folks how they can tweak what they have. I love the way you keep stressing, even in this conversation, don't look over your shoulder, don't seek something beyond. See the good that you have today. And that is the reason why also, I wanted you to talk about the Fab India thing, because it is the actual physical transformation. It's a beautiful metaphor from aridity to creating an ecosystem. That and it's a nurturing environment, and that is something which I really liked about your book and about the curriculum that you stress and the way you talk about it all. In fact, before I think we have to close now for questions. But one of the things which I really wanted to ask is, this conducive learning environment that we have been discussing about existing within a school environment. Do you think it's only the significance of it only starts and ends with the school, or does it actually proceed beyond and proceed beyond by by the way the student has learned? Do you think it goes beyond that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's why if you see, the word we are using again and again is learning forward. So school is equal to learning forward. School only encourages you to take learning forward, and school should make you a lifelong learner. That's the success of a school. School is not designed in any way that you pass out of it. School is designed in a way to instill in you this urge to learn, the urge to reinvent. In my little life, I think you must have read about it. I've kind of worn 10 hats. I've changed professions, had different organizations. I own a bookshop, ended up doing law, doing a management development program. That was just purely this urge to actually experience more out of life. And what I keep telling people is the experiences that make us. And one important thing we must mention, every individual school experience is a good school experience. Mera acha school, you only remember the good parts of it. And today we have reached a stage where we are saying that you don't need schools anymore, but you need a compilation or collection of experiences to learn. Now, how does that happen? If you are allowed to do service, skill, sport and study in your comfort, you will definitely get a very holistic school experience. And that's precisely why when we traveled all over the world last year, we showcased this idea of My Good School, which comprises of experiential learning of service, skill, sport and study. If you look at the Finland example, they don't have formal study they don't have a formal subject system like we have today. And that's where the new education policy is recognizing you don't need physics, chemistry, biology combinations to study and learn ahead. So as we move ahead, we don't need subjects, we need experiences. We need relationships and we need coexistence with the environment. So when we learn how to coexist with the environment, when we have stronger relationships and we have a collection of experiences, that's the definition of a school.
Well, now you're treading into those waters of conversations which are bursting forth these days between homeschooling and traditional schooling. So, because then people will ask, why are you going into that?
We'll need a series to handle those.
Yeah, exactly. Because the way you frame that answer, the way you frame that answer, it was like, okay, this is exactly what one is seeing more and more now of, in certain parts. So I don't think we should go into that. The day you and I can sit and have a long chat about it, we shall discuss it, because I think this is something that is applicable. That is the beauty of your philosophy. It is applicable across the board, and one of the words that you use to describe schools, the cultures, the diverse cultures and the linguistic abilities, that is the beauty. You have managed to distill it in this fascinating way, where you're only talking about, look at what we have, Okay, may I just read out one of the comments which has come in? I don't know if everyone can see it.
Before you read the comment, you have to highlight where passion meets education.
Well, I said that right in the beginning. I mean, that's
really is the key for a school. That's really the key for a school.
Exactly. Where passion meets education, but it's also the stress on the individual. I will not forget that which you have placed on the book cover like a bindu, so that you can't miss it.
That's the third eye.
Exactly. It's the all-seeing eye, and it's like the individual experience is what makes the good school. And I for a long time marveled at the book design and the cover and wondered if you had a hand in it as well, because
credit is really behind. It's very much in the family.
Yeah.
The credit for the cover is in the back.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It is. Yeah. So
that's how passion was translated, because only the people around you understood the depth. So if you look at this, you have nature, you have children, you have happiness, you have just about everything in every chapter in this cover.
Yeah. Exactly. And not just in the cover, in the design, in the way you have laid out everything. It's not like a template, but it's, you keep discovering more and more. I had to pause reading this book many times because you made my head burst with ideas, and the immense potential and possibilities here. But wait, I think we need to see. Okay, we have to read out a question which has come in. Not a question, it's more like a comment, which says, this is a very significant conversation. This book is for anyone and everyone associated with schools and schooling. This book is must for parents to select the school for their child, as the choice can have a lifelong impact on the growth and personality of the child. Well, I have to agree on that one. It's a very interesting observation based on the conversation. Another one which has come in is this conversation, I think it's from Prachi Nayak. This conversation will encourage us to observe, question, and evaluate, and choose a school that will truly prepare our child for a life beyond the campus, a life beyond theory, a life beyond algebra. That's an observation. Isn't that exactly the kind of impact you desired, Sandeep?
Absolutely.
Hello? Isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really delighted that people are getting to feel the book. That's what is more important than writing the book. And I must say, I must give all credit to the publishers who worked so hard. There was almost like 25 cover designs. It was the patience of Kapish Mehra and his team. I really admire them. And this book is a happenstance. I had finished writing it in 2017. I want to just mention this before we close. And I had put in the deep freezer. This is my 4th book. No one knows I've actually done 4 books also. It's not even mentioned in this book. They forgot to mention that also. So it's just that Mr. Mehra came for a little chat and how are you doing? I said, well, I've just been struggling through the COVID times, locked up home. So he says, what do you mean locked up home? I said, I've been working on making children happy through their teachers' happiness. He said, how do you do that? I said, I have a whole book. He said, can I just see it? And that's it. After that, it became a manuscript and we just got going. They got so fascinated by it. They're already saying that My Good School should have a sequel. It should be Joy of Learning.
Well, I mean, you can, before maybe Joy of Learning across the regions and languages, it should be a sort of a sample, an anthology of experiences, and
yes.
Experiences. Because I think this is more theoretical. This is more theoretical, even though you make it, you make the pitch of the writing accessible to all, and that is the beauty of this book. I really think that if you carry this forward, if you can, create like those podcasts that you do, those wonderful podcasts.
125 of them now. All thanks to Corona times, 125, and they're all over the world. So the My Good School story started with this only, where I said, okay, like I'm not alone. So I found 100 people starting from Bellingham in the west coast of America to Sydney and New Zealand. I identified 100 people who are working like us. So as easy as that. So we've just, I think, we are already recording show number 92.
And also the lengths vary, which I like, sometimes from 6 minutes to 64 minutes.
Absolutely.
And what I liked about that was the way you obviously you structure the conversations depending upon the response and the engagement and all what is essential in the focus of the conversation. But what I was going to add was maybe have a few more exploring some of these conversations, some of the aspects that you touch upon in the book, because I think while this is a theoretical outlay, we need to have more practitioners come on board and offer their aspects. And you have a fine ear for listening to people. I mean, the joy of listening to those podcasts was the graciousness with which you heard people out and were able to steer conversations. And I think being able to do those podcasts, some more podcasts along these lines, would help you, would not just help you, would encourage and help others to have in real time regular updates on how this is happening and how this can play out. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just
There's a show we are doing next month where we are getting people who have made some phenomenal success in India. Example like Kiran Beat Sethi of Riverside. There are about 4-5 of us. There's a show coming in US. It's going to be aired from end of this month. It's called Revolution in Education.
Okay.
So they have done a 7 podcast series. Each podcast is about 50 minutes, where 2-3 of us, I'm there in all of them, and then I have different people joining me in every show with a conversation. See, one thing I want to make very clear, you repeated theory, and theory. This is not theory. Now, what the beautiful part about us is, we have tried to find a way how we can take the learning out of the Fabindia School systems as a design. So this is a design. And applying the design we have done with over 100 schools through the Learning Forward Foundation. So it's a living design.
Well, okay, fine. I stand corrected, and I appreciate that. I prefer the phrase that you've used, living design, because living design, and I think that's why I was seeing it as practitioners. It works well because what you offer is a philosophy of a living design, and which can be applicable in many ways. And that is exactly why I would love to see you have more people come on board and share their experiences with you, and see how I'm sure you'll find other living examples of how different aspects of what you are doing already exist.
Absolutely. Thank the publisher, thank the people of the festival who are making it possible. With their support, we'll find more.
I was just coming to that. We have to wrap now. So thank you.
One more thing I want to mention.
Yeah.
Everything from the book and every bit of work we do goes to the Learning Forward Foundation. What the Learning Forward Foundation does, it identifies teachers who need support for their learning, and it supports them. So this is how the whole Fabindia cycle works, where the artisan should connect with the economy. A teacher should connect with learning, because teacher is the hand of the artisans, the mind of the artisan. So that's why it's a living philosophy. That's the beauty of our whole My Good School philosophy, our working model. And yes, in our working model, even government has invested. They use the school for a lab. They have set up the Niti Aayog set up a huge lab in our school. We are a center for the National Open School. We are a center for the National Teacher Training Program. So we are a private trust, and government has also come in and actually used our resources. So it just goes to show we can all work together.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So on that wonderful note, let us conclude, because we are now at the tail end of the program. So thank you very much, Sandeep, for joining us. And I really have to thank the organizers, Kalinga Literary Festival and Rupa Publishers, Kapish Mehra and his amazing team of Vasundhara and Geetu, who really worked hard behind the scenes to make this happen. And really, Sandeep, I hope we can have a longer conversation some other day. But it's been such a pleasure getting to know you through your book and now having this conversation. A wonderful pleasure. Thank you very much for being here.
Entirely mine. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Good night. Good night.
Good night. It's been wonderful working with Learning Forward, more so because I've had the golden opportunity of being the founder as well as the sponsor and the first chairperson of Learning Forward India. It was indeed an honor and privilege to stitch together the affiliate and bring in hundreds of people from all over the country as our members. In 3 years, we've come a long way. We have worked with a few dozen schools. What's most beautiful about Learning Forward is they are committed to raising the bar for the teaching and learning profession. And we as an affiliate strongly support that. And Learning Forward is but a natural step for everyone in life. Affiliate has to live by the spirit of Learning Forward. And John, not just be in design and policy, but in terms of purely connecting with the educators and helping them appreciate what they are doing. Affiliation is more about appreciating the spirit of learning. To understand the global implication of education, you must become an affiliate.